Welcome to the Beyond February podcast, where we celebrate the remarkable changemakers shaping our Montreal community. Today, we're excited to feature Lateef Martin, a multidisciplinary artist whose innovative work highlights illustration, writing, music, game design, cosplay, and voiceover. As the founder of Miscellaneum Studios, Lateef champions the voices and stories of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, along with the LGBTQ community, neurodivergent individuals, and those with disabilities, making his commitment to inclusivity transformative in fostering a richer narrative landscape. One of his standout projects is Zyle, a captivating comic series set in a post-apocalyptic Montreal that explores themes of survival and community, reflecting the resilience of marginalized voices. Lateef further expands this universe with Abdul Lateef and The Distraction Machine, a music theater performance that melds storytelling and musicality. Lateef has also developed a music-based puzzle game called The Distraction Machine, showcasing his exceptional creativity and making him a trailblazer in the Montreal art scene. Join us as we explore Lateef's inspiring journey, his groundbreaking projects, and his dedication to creating a more inclusive and vibrant artistic community.
Good. Thanks for having me.
First, you said it inspired something. Let's talk about it. What was that?
Yes, I got this actually made by an artist in Uganda.
Ooh.
They're called Tondo Clothing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following them for a while. I'm like, this is like incredible work. It looks so cool. It's very me.
Yes.
And then I performed at the Nyege Nyege Festival in Kampala. It was actually in Tonda Falls, Kampala in Uganda. And I realized, wait a minute, this guy's in my town. Let me invite him over to the hotel. And he brought some of his stuff. And my friend and I bought a piece off him just right like that. He did some fits, and he made this outfit for me with a couple other pieces. And for me, that was the highlight of the trip because the festival itself was admittedly post-COVID. A lot of events suffered because of staffing issues.
Yes,
but Nyege Nyege is a notoriously hedonistic a festival apparently, and the government was actively trying to shut it down. So they had a lot of problems with staffing and stuff like that. So it wasn't the best experience as a musician. I'm sure a lot of people that going had fun, but us musicians had a hard time.
Really?
So it wasn't fun, but I mean, the highlight was getting this outfit. And I was talking to a friend of mine who is a textile artist. And, I was like, just talking about how like disappointed I was that the event didn't go as planned. She said, but listen, you went and you did it.
Exactly.
So it just reminds me, and I think it's really important to remember, listen, everything you do or the dreams you have, you might not hit them the way you want.
Right.
But if you did the thing, you did it, move on, learn from those mistakes and keep going.
Exactly.
But it's tough not to live in regret sometimes because the things, the goals you want to hit and you don't hit them exactly how you want. But it's you either win or you learn.
Exactly.
And I think that's the best way to go forward.
That's correct. I like that you said that because I don't believe in losses either. I think you always learn from situations, whether they be good or bad. So I like that you took it that way. Even though you didn't have the best experience, you learned from it. So I think that's amazing. So you did a project by the name of Zyle, and that has become a distinct project that captures Montreal through a unique lens. Tell me what inspired you to make Montreal the heart of a zombie apocalypse story.
Well, my friend Dan Buller, who's like, in my opinion, one of the best illustrators in Montreal, we've been friends for like over 20 years. And we wanted to collaborate for years. We never got a chance to. And finally, The Walking Dead started coming out and we're both huge comic fans. And we're like, hey, let's, whatever happened to the serial comic? Like, you remember like back in the day, you'd have a magazine and in the back would be like a little strip. Oh my God, yes. Right? And that 4-panel strip would follow every week. We're like, what happened to that? So let's do our own serial comic. And we said, no one really does horror as a serial comic. So we thought about that. And so, cool, let's do our own take on zombies. And then that strip ended up being a page and then just turning into a comic book series. And the concept was like, hey, it's in Montreal, but Montreal isn't, every zombie story has guns.
Of course,
but Montreal's not a huge gun city, but it has a lot of bikes. So I made it into this bike-centric story, a style I called cycle punk. Okay. So you might know steampunk, where you have this kind of like, right? So cycle punk is just a culture based on bikes. So all the equipment and weapons and tools were made out of bikes. And Dan wasn't able to continue on the project, but my partner at the time, my creative partner actually now, Isabelle Duguay, came on board. And at one point, the idea was like, let's start the story where zombie stories usually end, where it's like the safe haven, right? So I'm thinking, what's the safest haven you could have in a zombie apocalypse? a deserted island. So the story,
I like that.
Yeah, the concept is that it starts on a deserted island with a bunch of campers and stuff, and the zombies had to walk under the water to get to the island, and then hell breaks loose. So, but at one point the project kind of died, and I told Isabel about it. She goes, "Well, Montreal's an island." I was like, "Oh my."
Right?
Damn, all right, girl, let's do this.
Yes.
And so we built that up, and she was a co-writer, and like she's a muralist and painter. Comic books is not her jam, but she became art director and co-writer, and also storyboarding stuff with me. So
wonderful.
We created this really cool comic book series. We did 6 issues of that, and from that we did a music theater show. As a multidisciplinary artist, I write music, I do costumes, I do voiceover, all that kind of stuff. So, the cosplay that we did for our comic was based on like costumes and bikes and stuff. So our cosplay really stood out, and so, yeah, we did that. And then after doing, those 6 comics, issue 7 is still due, very, very late.
Okay,
but
that's okay.
There was a video game in the way, which we just finished putting out last summer.
Wonderful. I love that. That's really good. Experiences growing up in Montreal and studying at Dawson College influenced your journey into comics and game development?
I mean, I was always drawing as a kid. I used to animate. I used to take my mom's books and animate in the corner. So I had these her novels. So sorry, Mom.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I mean, I was drawing ever since I was a kid. I got the artistic side from my mother. I got the music side from my father. But yeah, went to Dawson in creative arts. And at that time, Montreal was a big, booming movie town. And a friend of mine had taken illustration and design, which is like, the next step, right? And at that time, I didn't think I was talented enough or had the money.
Okay.
So I didn't do illustration and design the first time. But I went back to school in 2007 to take illustration and design. And the thing is, at that time, video games was the big thing. And so at that point, like when I left, I was like, hey, I've always wanted to tell my own stories.
Yes.
And I was planning on being a filmmaker, but I'm like, wait a minute, video games is an incredible platform for storytelling. So I've done a couple of different video game projects trying to get funding and this and that. And finally, we made a video game that's actually a prequel to Xyle.
Wow.
Where Xyle, going back with the idea like, every zombie story starts at the beginning of the apocalypse. But what it would be like if it was like a decade in and people are like used to it,
if that's their regular life.
Yeah, if a kid grows up, like Carl, for example, in The Walking Dead, zombies are normal to him because he grew up with that.
Exactly.
So we wanted to start there. And so the story of Xyle happened 7 years after the zombie apocalypse, and Distraction Machine, the music-based puzzle game, happens during the zombie apocalypse, during the 7-year war. So the video game is like a prequel to the comic, but also it is a music-based game where you can also just make music with it.
Wow.
So it's actually a music sequencer, and I've used that to do shows. There's a music festival called MuTech. They have that in Montreal and a couple other towns across the world. So I did MuTech. I did a workshop with Overture with the Arts with the kids.
Yes.
And that really made me realize just how much or how special our game was because, we do conventions and people would come and play our game. Isabel would like kind of watch. She makes the booths as well with a background, with a master's in like set design. She really knows how to make a booth stand out.
Okay.
But she's also really analytical, and watching the kids and seeing how they play the game. We're like, oh, kids from 5 to 9 love playing with it, but kids from 9 to 11 really want to make music. So just learning, just doing all these different projects, you're learning things you wouldn't expect to learn.
Of course.
And it just takes you in paths you wouldn't expect to go. So it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, that sounds like it. I love that. And you've described Xyle as a Canadian zombie mythology. So what elements make it uniquely Montreal and Canadian?
Well, yeah, number one, the bikes thing. Like,
yes.
The fact that we had that kind of like bike vibe where like all the weapons, all the tools, and also the instruments. And I actually built an instrument out of a bike. It's called the Miscellaneum bike harp.
Okay.
And it's funny because I had developed this way before I even came up with Xyle.
Right.
And I was like, wait a minute, I always want to make music with my stories. I'm like, this is the perfect instrument. So that kind of tied into it. And we also wanted to focus on what makes Montreal different from other places in the world. The culture, the language, the some of the landmarks. But yeah, we really just wanted to kind of focus on the differentiation between all the other zombie stories out there and what makes Montreal kind of stand out. And Montreal's not quite Canada. It's not quite the States.
Right.
It's not Europe. It's got its own flavor. Of
course.
So I've always tried to push that in that specific comic.
That's good. And so receiving a grant from the Canadian Media Fund was a huge milestone for you. How has this support allowed you to bring new ideas to Xyle and elevate the project?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Canada Media Fund is specifically, they fund an interactive digital media and film. And so we applied a lot, several times.
I love the honesty, you said a lot.
Yeah, yes. we failed a lot, and that's the thing. It's like, there's a lot more fails, and people need to remember, it's like, hey, listen, everyone you love, all the artists, they've all had tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of no's. Right. It only takes one yes.
Exactly.
Right? So we've had funding from them to do our game, but we also had funding from the the Black Developer Fund from the States.
Wow.
Which was basically from a company called Humble. It was a game publisher called Humble. And when the merger of George Floyd, it sparked the largest, a social justice movement of all time. And the whole world came out for that. And let's be real. It was kind of a perfect storm of people being isolated, not having anything to do. And,
right.
Let's go outside. Right.
That is true. Yeah.
But it did make a difference. And there were a lot of companies that put their, people said you have 2 years of goodwill to work with. I'm like, and Humble was one of the very few, if only, video game studios that said, you know what, let's put some money into Black developers.
Right.
And we got funding from them. So that was great. The Canada Media Fund also had a BIPOC, a Black and POC fund for interactive regional media. They already had one for Indigenous creators, but they had one specifically for Black and other POC groups. So that also helped. The Black Opportunity Fund as well. So all these different sources helped make that happen.
Right. You've worn many hats, Lateef: illustrator, storyteller, and even musician. How do all these creative outlets shape the unique perspective you bring to all of your projects?
Hey, are you a Star Trek fan?
If anyone's
a Star Trek fan, it's like, they go, divert power to phasers, divert power to shields,
exactly.
divert power to life support. So it's the same energy, right? It's just, I'm really fortunate enough to be able to take that energy and put it into drawing, writing, cosplay, costume, music, and the ADHD. So one of the things that is interesting is that, I've been talking with Joanna earlier. Being a freelancer, you're living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck. So the first time I got funding for this game was the first time I had a decent salary. Wow. It's like, yo, I can save money, which I didn't. But
I love your honesty.
I did get my ADHD diagnosis, which I thought was really a huge step for me, because there's a stigma within the Black community I found. With mental health and therapy is for white people. But it's like, no, now we're talking about this a lot more. It's, one of the good things about social media is the fact that there's a platform for a lot of Black content creators to actually talk about things like these podcasts. A lot of podcasts are kind of, but there's some good ones out there. And seeing Black beauty and people celebrating Blackness and talking about Black mental health has been huge. So getting my ADHD diagnosis was important for me to understand why I do the things I do and how I cope. And how I coped was doing all the things I love. I love that. For me, it was like, okay, and it's always been like that since high school, where people you spread yourself too thin. But it's like, yeah, but I'm happiest doing a bit of everything. And so for me, it's like, if I do a project where we did a music theater show in 2018 during Pop Montreal, where I did costume design, I did music, I did singing, I did step dance, I did build instruments, and working with these amazing singers, dancers, and musicians. So for me, it's just like, if I'm able to kind of scratch all those itches, then I'm happy.
That's awesome. I relate with you because I do a lot of things too. And I feel comfortable doing that, just not one thing. And I think that a lot of us actually have ADHD because we just, you know what I mean? I don't know if you ever feel like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, all the time. And part of my work is advocacy within the video game space. I've been saying this for years, but I don't think it's changed much. But I'm one of 3, if that, Black developers in Quebec. If there are more, holla, let me know. But as far as I know, there's only about 3 or 4 of us, 3,
right?
And so it's like, that's not cool. And always trying to bring in more people of color, more Black people into games to kind of help with that. So it's like, yeah, I'm making games, but I also have to dedicate my time to human rights. It's cool, I'll do it. I'd rather just make pretty pictures, but if I gotta help the cause, yes, let's make it happen.
That's it. And you often mention the importance of networking, especially for introverted artists. How has connecting with other artists been pivotal to your journey?
It is crucial.
Yes.
Because you're gonna have those moments where you feel like you're alone, you're isolated, that you're the only person that's gone through this, and it's just not true. You're gonna have successes and failures and roadblocks and whatnot. And it's important to be able to have a community to reach out to, go, hey, I'm having a problem with this. I've been there. Let me tell you how this works. Or, hey, I'm sorry, it's rough. But you need, can I help you? But building community is so essential.
It is.
Yeah, they say it takes a village to raise a child, and it's like, it takes a village to help, raise, people and be successful. No one's a success by themselves.
Right.
So if you surround yourself with like-minded people, motivated people, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Right. So you got to really, reach out there. And I, one thing COVID has taught me is that I am indeed an extroverted introvert. Like, I'm very happy just being by myself.
Yes.
But it's important to find like-minded people that are out there.
Yes.
And the more you find that are closer to your heart, the easier the role will be.
100%. And you've also overcome funding setbacks, such as challenges with the MacU DaCosta Fund and early grant rejection.
Woo.
So what keeps you pushing forward despite those kind of obstacles?
This is bigger than me. I want to create a legacy. My goal in the end is and it's great because it's happening. I want to see more positive. I want to see more positive feedback. I want to see more positive representation in media.
Of course.
And one of the things we say about Miscellaneum Studios is where everyone could be a hero. But I always say that, there has to be representation on both sides of the screen. It's important to have Black characters or queer characters or disabled neurodivergent characters or people of size on camera.
Yes.
But you better be damn sure they're behind camera too.
100%.
Right. So I make it a concentrated effort to ensure that our team is diverse. And if we're telling stories outside of our team's experience, then we reach out to different communities. If I have an Indigenous character and I want to dig deep into what are the roots, what's your culture? I don't know this. I can read up on it, but I'd rather consult an elder or someone from a specific community to really understand and represent it properly. So. It's really key that you artists do that.
Receive commendations like the Pitch the Dream competition prize. How do these moments of recognition impact your long-term goals?
It's great. I mean, it's super helpful to know that there are programs out there now that can support us. It's funny because now I'm seeing more and more programs are happening. Oh, I wish I had that when I was back then. But even back then, I'm sure there are other older Black folk doing what I do. Oh, I wish I had that when I was your age. So it's great to see those programs happening, but that recognition is important. That community is important because it says, hey, we recognize you're doing something. We recognize that's potential. Show us what you got. And, if we can help you out, we will. And also the thing about, we were talking earlier about, you either win or you learn.
Yes.
And because of all those failures, not getting, I've obviously gotten a lot less grants than I've gotten. Or rather, I've gotten a lot. I've gotten a lot less grants than I've gotten denied for. I'm getting it all mixed.
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yes, of course.
Point is that,
of course,
you look at all those failures and the lessons, you're looking at that, you're going, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to change things up. But writing grants and writing about your own projects gives you a deeper understanding of your own project. So even if you don't necessarily get grant funding, it helps you refine your ideas.
That's true.
And I think it's important, just regardless of grants or whatever, as an artist, especially if you're freelance or you're running your own company, half that time is hiring people, keeping the company going, looking for funding.
Right.
And not everyone has the bandwidth to do that. But I think it's important that you really understand what you're creating in order to communicate it properly to someone else.
I hear you. So, Lateef, tell me, if you could develop a future project that uplifts untold Black stories, what would it look like and what message would you want it to send to audiences?
I would love to, it's been on my mind for a while and, over time it's shifting, but I went to an Afrofuturism convention in Ottawa a couple of weekends ago. I was invited. The title was Afrofuturist Inventor. I'm like, I like that.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's good.
And there's incredible talent from all over Canada and the States and academics, artists, writers, musicians. And one academic, his name is Dr. Reynaldo Anderson, and he was telling us that we need to have a system in Canada. A lot of other places around the world have their Afrofuturism scene pop, and they're waiting for Montreal, or rather Canada, they're waiting for Canada to step up. And we have something going. We have these pockets, we have people moving, but coming together as one and moving as a larger unit will help ensure that we have more voices that are being shared. So, working with people to create, an Afrofuturist movement in Canada would be great. I'd love to see a Black video game publisher.
Ooh.
We haven't seen that yet. A lot of Black artists, musicians, dancers, singers, athletes, they'll do like clothing lines, they'll do food or and that's great. But video games is still new to us as a culture.
Yes.
So, it's going to take, some pushing, but I really want to see more actual Black publishers hiring and creating Black games and getting Black studios to like put out games together.
I love that. You've often gone against the grain with your creative work. So how important is it to you to use art to challenge those traditional narratives and create space for new perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, it's the work. I mean, we've been raised on that type of art. We've been raised on cartoons and comics and TV shows, and we don't see ourselves reflected in those. And a lot of people tend to forget how powerful that is. They go, oh, it's just a TV show, it's just a cartoon. Yeah, but you've been seeing, when I say the word pimp and you close your eyes, do you think of a white dude?
Yeah.
No, you've been taught your entire life that a pimp is a Black guy.
Exactly.
That's just an example. But, I always say, the Black guy gets killed first, or Jurassic Park, where they had 2 Black guys and they killed the first guy before the credits happened.
Right.
You got the bonus with Samuel L. Jackson. So it's like, it really is about like us telling our own stories, for us, by us. It really is about that, because no one else is going to do it for us. And no one is going to do it the way we need to have our stories told.
That's right. Excites you the most about the future of storytelling in video games, particularly with a focus on diverse voices?
What I really enjoy now is seeing how, again, going back to social media and how it's given a platform for a lot of Black content, a lot of Black content creators, and those diverse voices. Hearing about metalheads in Africa, or like Ugandan like heavy metal artists, and hearing about like Black kids doing punk, seeing Black cosplayers, and seeing Black cosplayers who are advocating for Black cosplay. So seeing the fact that like, oh, wow, things are way more diverse than just, basketball and R&B and hip hop, which is kind of what we've been fed, Black people, basketball, hip hop, R&B.
Add football in there too.
Add football too, right? Which is great, obviously. But
it's not bad. It's just
there's way more to us than just that.
100%.
We're not a monolith. So just seeing what these creators are able to do with these platforms now is really exciting. And breaking the mold, seeing kids break the mold is for me is really exciting. To like, great, we have these foundations, but let's see where else we can go.
I love that. And what has been your proudest moment in your journey with Xyle so far? And what made it so significant for your personality?
Ooh, wow, that's a good question. It's a long question. I mean, there's so many proud moments. I mean, the first Comic-Con we did.
Yes.
Danny Glover was a guest one year. Oh. And at the end of the day, he was kind of walking by my booth, kind of exhausted. I was like, and we have these packages where like we have a bag with a comic book. We have these frizz magnets and stickers. I'm like, give me a package. I'm like, please just take it, please. I love you so much. And he kind of smirked and took the package. I'm like, thank you.
You're like, thank you so much.
You were, right?
Yes.
And meeting Tony Todd, you remember Candyman?
Yes. Oh my God.
Be my victim, Helen.
Yes.
Right? That dude. Seeing him, I go, dude, like, I love your shit. We're doing... Ooh.
Okay.
I love your work, and I'm like, and we're making a video game, and he goes, are there any voiceover opportunities for this game? I'm like, yeah, damn right there are. So I got to email. So meeting great people, connecting with fans directly, seeing people react, going, wow, like we have something people really like.
Yes.
That's there's so many different highlights, it's hard to pick one, the music show we did we did 3 sold out shows during Pop Montreal, culminating all these things. We're like, oh, I've known you for years. You've been breakdancing. You've been a band member with me at one time, and you've been doing music, or just so bringing things together. I really enjoy bringing people together and like make worlds colliding.
Yes,
I love that. So this project has allowed me to do that a lot too.
Tell me what a day off for Lateef Martin looks like.
Woo! Oh man, I one of the goals for this project, because we just started working on a new video game, has nothing to do with Xyle, which is refreshing. We've been doing Xyle for like 10 years.
Yes.
So it's just refreshing to do something completely new. And, the promise was to have one day off in the week. It's baby steps.
Okay.
But what I'd like my day off to be would be like food prep, laundry, house cleaning.
Right.
So it's not really a day off. It's a day of preparing for the week, which you need that, right? Ideally, Saturday's your day off and Sunday's your prep day, but Saturday is kind of a work day for me too.
Okay.
But if I would like to, live the dream of having that day off, I don't know, man. Brunch, the beach,
yes,
dancing the night before, start the day off at night the night before, have that roll out.
right.
Just chilling with friends, that's the dream. The day off of like doing nothing, that's the dream.
That's awesome. If there's any quote that you live by on a daily basis, can you tell me what it is?
Oh, man. I was thinking about this. Oh, no. Right now, it's not necessarily a quote it's not a daily quote, but it's something that I've been saying recently because of recent events. And it ties into everything, really, at the end of the day. A genocide anywhere is a genocide everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And what strikes me is that people who are, and it just still blows my mind that people are defending, like, what's happening in Palestine, the genocide happening in Palestine. And also the fact that, hey, there are other genocides happening in the world.
Right. And
they're all connected. But the thing is, like, you're defending all this, but if someone could do that to this group of people, that means they could do it to anyone. They could do it to you. So it's like the whole, like, it's funny. You try to appeal to people's, like, sense of humanity, and it has to come down to like, okay, well, you don't want that to happen to you. And for me, that's not even a matter. It's like, oh, if it's happening to someone, it shouldn't be happening at all, regardless of whether if it can happen to me or not. Mm-hmm. So I just think, remembering that we're way more connected than we're led to believe. Mm-hmm. And that's something that should drive everyone to do better and to, like, 100%. Make community larger and more accepting, because this toxic individuality and, like, these ideas of, like, me and mine. It's like, like, that's not how nature works.
Yeah.
We need to work together. Like, we have one planet and we're messing it up. That's why the aliens ain't visited. Aliens ain't coming. What you think? Like, they ignore that planet. If they make it another 1,000 years, maybe. Maybe. We'll touch it. Yeah. But for now, no zone.
Oh my goodness. So, yeah. Okay. Give me 3 words to describe Lateef Martin.
That's a good one. Oh, I need a second for that one. Okay, one I would say is motivated. Mm-hmm. I'd like to say humble, but that's not true. Not so much humble, but more like aware.
Yes. As you should be, though.
Yeah, right? I mean, these are things everyone should be. But motivated, aware, excited, and be overexcited depending on who I talk with. But yeah, excited, or like cautious. Well, that's 2 words. Cautiously optimistic.
That's okay.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yes.
I think is one. And then inspired and it's so hard. Wow.
It is hard to describe yourself, isn't it?
Especially in 3 words.
Exactly. But you know what? You've accepted that. You said, I'm aware. And I think that's very important, because as artists, sometimes we're like, yeah, I've done that, but, we kind of shy away from what we've done. And I think that you embrace it and accept it. I think that's beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I would say learning. Learning.
That we talked about earlier, right?
Because, like, what I know now, I didn't know 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? And so I could say, I'm woke or I'm aware of these things, but, like, I am a cisgendered heterosexual male. Mm-hmm. I have a limited view of other people's experiences. Right. So who am I to say I know? Exactly. I need to listen. I need to sit down and listen and internalize and understand how I'm able to navigate and do my best to open doors and leave those doors that were open for me open for behind me.
I love that. Yeah. Lateef, what is next for you?
Next for me, we're working on a new game. It's a social media / social justice themed beat 'em up. So if anyone remembers Double Dragon, it's just 2 guys that you know. Right? So it's like that, but the characters you embody are based on social media debate tropes. Characters. So, like, for example, there's the activist, there's a keyboard warrior, there's a troll.
Wow, the keyboard warrior.
Yeah, right.
A lot of you guys out there.
And yet all these powers and attacks are based on social media debate terms. So you can gaslight someone and set them on fire.
Oh my goodness.
You can like dogpile someone by setting a bunch of people to jump on top of them. In a bonus round, there's the moving goalposts.
Oh my goodness.
So you need to kind of get your thing through the moving goalposts. And so that's really exciting, developing that game, especially in these wild times where, like, satires. We're living in idiocracy right now. So it's like, how do you write satire? If you don't know what idiocracy is, look it up. But it's like, how do you write satire when times have gone beyond satire? You know? So working on that video game right now, that's the most exciting thing.
Awesome. Lateef, thank you for being here today. We're so proud of you. We're happy that you're here.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching another episode of Beyond February podcast. The next one.